So, I want to talk today about something that's been on my mind since reading a recent Wall Street Journal article. It's titled What the Death of My Arab Student Taught Me About Israel, and it's by Fania Oz Salzberger. So, as you can imagine, it was about the death of an Arab student. Her name is Shada Khatib. She died during a missile attack in her hometown of Tamra. And what struck me was, there clearly is a serious issue with shelter distribution in Israel. And I think it's an important matter to address fully, so I'd like to do that here. Now, let's start with the facts. Only about 50% of Arab citizens in Israel have access to certified bomb shelters. Compare that to roughly 74% of Jewish citizens. Now, that's not a small gap, and we have to admit it is a moral problem. But we also need to be careful, because as the great conservative economist Thomas Sowell says, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. So I would like to talk about some of those really important trade-offs and explore the logic behind these decisions, and also explore the perhaps more troubling problematic side. Now, first is the politics. Okay, so Arab political parties in Israel have historically refused to join coalitions with, Zionist mainstream parties. And whether or not you agree with that stance, the result is that Arab citizens don't have the leverage in the budget process that they need. Why? Because in parliamentary politics, it ultimately comes down to deal making and leveraging your seats in the Knesset. But if you refuse to do that, then you simply become a symbolic party with no real influence, and thus your constituents don't really get the benefits of the democratic system, right? So just to give you some proof of this, take a look at when Arab parties did join for the first time in a historic scenario under the short-lived Naftali Bennett government with the Ram Party. They formed a coalition, and for the Arab community, we saw historic legislation. 30 billion shekels went toward the Arab community development. Okay? So this proves the theory of how parliamentary politics works. So the main point here is that Arab parties must start forming coalitions with mainstream Israeli parties. That is just a necessity. And the politics of that can be complicated, maybe better for another video altogether, but it is absolutely essential in this process. Now, there's also the issue of the infrastructure. So most Arab towns are old. They were built before Israel's 1992 law requiring all new buildings to include bomb shelters, and many Jewish areas are just simply newer and therefore better equipped. Now, there's also the issue of land development, which I'll get into that a little bit later, but let's keep that to the side. Most Arab development has been illegal, and this creates a lot of bureaucratic issues, and it's a serious problem, and this is where I think the criticism of Israel is actually very legitimate. But it also should be understood in the context of a lot of the areas in the Arab regions are much more complicated places to develop, given their hilly nature, etc., etc. But let's keep that to the side. The third, and really what needs to be understood here, is the strategy. It's cold, hard strategic logic. Our enemies, like Iran, they are targeting Jews and economic hubs. Tel Aviv, for example, isn't just a city. It's 50% of the country's GDP. Tel Aviv is also the most densely populated city in Israel, or at least one of them. So if you're Iran and you just want to maximize the potential for damage, Tel Aviv just makes most sense to do that, because for every missile you launch, you're likely to kill more people per missile. It's also incredibly symbolic. Okay, it is a predominantly Jewish city. It was started by Jews. This is not an Arab city by any means. So there's also this symbolic element to it. And given that it's almost predominantly Jewish, you're going to see a disparity in attacks there. So from a defense perspective, resources get prioritized in Tel Aviv and in the center, because this is going to give you a bigger bang for your buck. And remember, we have to consider that we have limited resources to invest. So if you invest away from Tel Aviv and you put more shelters in the north or in the south, there's a real chance that the result of that will be that more people are going to die simply because there wasn't enough infrastructure built in the major population centers. Right? That means more Jews are going to die. And a case in point, in the recent Iranian attack against Israel, 28 civilians died. And as far as I'm aware, only about 4 of them were Arab Israelis. So that's about 15%, okay? That's less than their overall proportion of the population, which is around 20%. So they are less likely to have shelters, but they are also less likely to die, despite the fact that they don't have those shelters. Okay? So take that as you will. It's not to say that we shouldn't invest more in giving Arab citizens of Israel, Arab Israelis, more access to shelters, but it's to understand the strategic logic of why we're here and why we've invested more in population centers in the Jewish communities. Okay? Now, that being said, land. This is a very fair critique, right? The Israeli government owns about 90% of all land. Arab communities make about 20% of the population, but they only have jurisdiction to around 3% of the land. This is a significant disparity, and when you couple their lack of politicking with the bureaucratic gridlock of the state, the zoning, the really strict zoning laws, and really the refusal to legalize informal construction, we end up in a situation where Arab citizens are underdeveloped and overcrowded, and some of it is security policy, some of it is racism, but listen, most of it is just, it's a bad system, and we don't really need to focus on the racism so much. What we need to do is focus on the system. If you change the system, and it's not a super complicated thing to change, right? And as a classical liberal, I believe in free markets, limited government, and equal rights amongst individuals. The solution? Israel needs to sell off all non-sensitive state land, meaning environmentally significant and militarily strategic land. Deregulate housing development, require efficient multi-story residential building, have a particular set percentage dedicated to low-income and middle-income housing, just to ensure that the market is going to invest in that. And this will help not just Arabs, but everyone. The more housing there is, the more you let people build, the easier it is to live. I mean, this is what it comes down to. Liberalizing land isn't just about money. It's about our safety. It's about the dignity, and it's about finally living up to the ideals that the country was founded on. So that's my position. So if you found this video helpful or meaningful, I would definitely like to invite you to subscribe to the channel, click like as well, leave some comments, let me know what you think. Would love to interact. We'll answer to all my comments for sure, unless it's truly despicable. But you can also check out the full-length piece, the article on my Substack, mickeyevans.substack. Check that out. Link will be in the description. And yeah, once again, let's keep the conversation going.